Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Will DuPree here in the KXAN live studio, and we appreciate you watching. Tomorrow, Saturday, marks 1 year since Travis County reported its very first case of COVID-19. And here's where the numbers stand at this point. Since that time, the virus has infected more than 77,000 people in our area. New cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are still being reported every single day. Fortunately, Austin Public Health says over 75,000 have now recovered from the disease caused by the novel coronavirus. Some of those recoveries include me and a few of my colleagues. I will tell you that no reporter ever wants to become part of the story, but in this uncontrolled pandemic, that's been unavoidable. Now, we all got infected, we survived, and we kept on reporting for all of you at home. And today we wanted to hold a reporter roundtable to discuss what impact that infection had on us, what issues we see that we should be still covering at this point, and what the future looks like. So let's bring my colleagues now into this conversation. Bear with me just 1 second as we jump over to a Zoom meeting. And joining me now that we are over here in our Zoom call, as so much live has been conducted in that way at this point. Joining me today are reporter Candy Rodriguez and anchor and reporter Jacqulyn Powell. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Will.
We first want to start off and say about, we have one thing in common, a few things actually, but one big thing is that each of us got COVID-19 and fortunately survived to talk about it. For me, I had the newest case of us. My case was reported back at the beginning of February, so just at the start of last month, after I had a direct exposure. My case was fortunately mild. Symptoms were very mild, and I'm recovered pretty well, doing fine, feeling good right now. But Candy and Jackie, you both had cases from last year. Not long after the start of the pandemic. So I just want to start with you, Candy, and tell me about your experience with it and what you felt.
Yeah, so when I got it, it was actually during the first surge back in June. I think Jackie and I were just a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks apart from when we first realized that we had it. But when I first got it, Jackie got it first, and then I got it right after her. And when I got it, at first, I didn't even realize I had it. So what I was going through was I had, at that time, allergy-like symptoms. And in my head, we kept thinking, or at least I kept thinking, maybe it's just allergies. You know, we're coming into the summer season. We're leaving kind of like springtime. So maybe I'm starting to feel something. Maybe I'm getting a summer cold. That has happened to me in years past, pre-COVID-19. So I just kind of ignored it. But then once I started to feel the breathing issues come, I thought to myself, I don't know why. And I think at that time it's because we were so nervous and so scared. We didn't know much about COVID-19. And so at that time, I kept making up an excuse for everything. I thought that the reason I was having shortness of breath was because, oh, well, I'm just working from home and I haven't been on my bike. I haven't been running. You know, I've just been sitting at home working on my laptop. So I was just trying to come up left and right with all these excuses of why I was feeling the way I was feeling, because I was like, there's no way I could have COVID-19. I haven't been anywhere for the most part. I've been inside. I mean, and, you know, God, I said to myself, you know, I have to take a test just to be safe. I just wanted peace of mind. And at that time, thankfully today, I think some people get it back. I've heard within the same day, 24 hours, 48 hours at most is what I've heard. But at that time, it took a week for me to get back my test results to let me know that I was positive with COVID-19. And so that was just devastating. And I remember that after that happened, other symptoms started to come and the breathing just got worse. I remember I told Jackie, I had spoke with you as well, Will, because Jackie and I were pretty much in contact the whole time because we were both going through it at the same time. And I remember telling Jackie that I would be lying down in my bed and it felt like I was winded. Like I just couldn't breathe. You know how whenever you take a deep breath and you feel like you've reached the max, you've capped out. I could not get there. No matter how many times I would take a deep breath, I could not get to that max capacity level. I didn't feel that. And I think for me, the scariest part was that I was just lying there and I would just start to feel winded at times. And in my head, I was like, dear God, please don't send me to the hospital. Because at that time we were seeing people that were going to the hospital. And sadly, a lot of these folks were not coming back out. Once we saw a lot of these people were going on the ventilators, there was little hope at that time, at least from what we were seeing. And so I was very nervous about that. And then, obviously as the time went on and my breathing got a little bit better, I started to experience other things that I know you experience as well, Will. And it's so crazy to me to think that a year ago, Will, I called you and I was like, I literally cannot remember why I came into this room. I had like this mental fog, this like blocker that I would walk into my living room and I would just think to myself, what did I come here for? Why did I get up? What am I supposed to, was I supposed to grab something? And I remember calling you and I was so sad and I think I was crying on the phone with you because I was like, I don't know why I feel this way and I don't know why I can't concentrate. And then you also felt that way. So I think a lot of us have had similar symptoms and gone through similar situations, but I think this virus is just so different for everyone. And you truly don't know how it's going to impact you. I mean, I've heard of folks that say, I didn't feel anything. I didn't even know I had COVID. And other folks that you're like, oh, you definitely knew and you ended up in the hospital. So my thing is like, why risk it? Why risk even being exposed to it or even getting it? Because you just never know how it's going to affect you and your body and your health.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Candy, your experience with mental fog in particular is something that I kept thinking about because when I was sick just last month, at the very beginning of the month, I had difficulty like even focusing on work. So I was trying to write a lot because that's what we do in our job. But it was difficult to even continue like even sentences at points because I would lose focus and figure out where am I going exactly. And it feels like a familiar yet strange feeling both at the same time. So again, as you said, like I was trying to play it off like, oh, it's something else, but it really was COVID. And because you had that experience, that helped me realize like, oh, okay, this is a part of what this is. So Jackie, talk about whenever you got infected. How did it affect you? What did you feel in the kind of initial days of your positive test?
Yeah, well, so similar. I was sitting listening to Candy's story and I remember talking with her about it at the time because I think it was just a couple of weeks after I was first infected that she's like, oh no, I have it. And we're like, oh no. And I remember laying in bed commiserating with her because I couldn't even sit up on the phone. But I started out the same way and it was so strange at the time. I felt like I get cedar fever badly every year. Of course, this was in the summer. This was the very beginning of June. So I'm thinking, okay, well, it's not cedar season. But I felt like I had allergies. I had a very sore throat. I felt like I had postnasal drip. My nose was itchy. I was sneezing a lot. I think I had a little bit of a stomach ache at first, but didn't think much about that. I mean, I really thought I had allergies. And if you guys remember at the time, we were sharing graphs on our website. I think the CDC had little comparisons, like here's how you know if it's the flu or COVID or allergies. And they were saying you won't have allergy-like symptoms. So I came to work, thought I was fine, thought, oh, it's just allergies. These wouldn't be COVID symptoms, but we knew so little about it at that point. We were only a few months into the pandemic. Came to work and every one weekend shift when I was anchoring and they had to quarantine people after that because they'd all been around me because I didn't know I was exposing people. A couple days later, I finally decided maybe I should get a COVID test just to be sure. And sure enough, like Candy, I waited over a week, I think, for my test results to come back or close to that. But I did start to develop flu-like symptoms. And as I was waiting so long for the test results to come back, I knew before they even did because I did lose my smell. I lost my sense of smell completely. And I lost my taste for a few days to the extent that I could only taste salty or sweet, which I've heard from other people. I could still taste, but I remember I ate breakfast one morning. So I had like orange juice and bacon and everything. And I could not tell the difference. It was just like a sweet taste. Like my bacon tasted the same as my eggs, just different texture. It was the weirdest thing. So at that point I was like, okay, pretty positive that I have COVID. And so I would say the first week and a half, it was pretty mild for me. And you know, my case would be considered a moderate case, which technically that's the definition, but for me, it was the sickest I'd ever been in my life. You know, flu, pneumonia, anything I've ever had, I was never as sick as I was with COVID. So I would say around week 2, it started to get really bad. I didn't run a fever for the first couple of weeks. You know, kind of just started with the shortness of breath. I have asthma, I will say. So I had, you know, a pre-existing condition that did make it worse, and I think really made it drag out. So I started to get very short of breath. I remember just trying to sit up. I would feel like I couldn't breathe. Specifically eating, when I would eat, it was so hard to eat because I would feel like I couldn't breathe as I was sitting up and eating. So I would kind of lay back and try to eat like that. You know, just getting up to go get a glass of water, try to go to the bathroom, I had a really rapid heart rate. I had a pulse oximeter, thankfully, and I would monitor it. And every time I would get up, I would be at like 150, 160, my heart rate, which is just insane. So I had kind of a weird case in that, and I've heard other people have this as well. I had the kind of normal symptoms, nothing super serious to worry about, just very uncomfortable for the first couple of weeks. Then I thought I was getting better. I remember for about 3 days, I started working again, and I was working from home, of course, you know, doing stuff over Zoom, but I was on air, kind of reporting on my experience. And then after about 3 days of feeling better and thinking I was on my way out, I crashed and I got a fever. I was at about 102, and it lasted for 2 weeks straight. Never let up, even taking Tylenol. It never phased it. It was a constant fever for 2 weeks, which is very uncomfortable. I ended up going to the hospital. My doctor sent me to the ER because I had such bad chest pains and heart palpitations and such bad shortness of breath that she was just worried about me. Had me do kind of the EKG and all that, and get blood tests and make sure I didn't have any blood clots. I was fine. I got discharged. I didn't have to be admitted. But it was a scary experience. And my case just kind of drug on. The doctor eventually told me, you know, we don't think you're contagious, but we don't want you going back to work in person. I was out for exactly 2 months because my body just wasn't up for it. And I know that my asthma had something to do with that. My doctor really did feel that, you know, it takes you longer to recover when you have something that COVID impacts like that. But it was a rough experience. It was about two months of my life that I was the sickest I'd ever been. It was, I would say it was miserable. And, you know, I do have asthma, but that's a common, you know, lung thing that people have. And I'm young, you know, I was in my 20s. I would have never expected getting so sick. So like Candy, I warn everyone too, it is not worth it. And I was very careful. That's the thing. I mean, I only ever went out to the grocery store, and of course I was reporting, sometimes for work, had to be out in the field, but I was as careful as I could be. Still got it. Had a miserable experience. Don't recommend it.
And that's what I wanted to ask you too, both of you. I mean, because you were so careful and the experiences you went through, what's your advice for people? What do you hope that they keep in mind, even though we're now tomorrow marks almost a year into this pandemic?
It's not over. I mean, just because, you know, thankfully vaccine rollout is going, and Jackie's going to talk about that here in a second because she's been doing a lot of reporting on that. And so things are getting better. We're starting to see more of that. I remember reporting on the first day when the vaccines got here, and I thought, oh my God, this is the beginning. That was December 15th. I remember the date. But even with that, despite that, I don't care. Like, you should still assume that we're at the beginning and just take every precaution that you can, because again, you just never know. Jackie's experience, while similar to mine, similar to yours, similar to other people, we all had a different experience. We all had different challenges and obstacles to have to overcome. For me, it was the breathing. I never lost my sense of taste or sense of smell. I could definitely still eat. But It's just the breathing. I felt like, oh my goodness, I am going to have to go to the hospital and be put on a ventilator. And I didn't end up having to go to the hospital, but Jackie did. And she had other issues. And then the other thing too is like, as soon as I started to recover, I had some lingering side effects there, but they only lasted a couple of weeks, maybe at most a month or two. But Jackie's still dealing with issues today.
Yeah,
and I don't know about you, Will, if you.
Yeah, no, I'll mention that. I don't mind sharing my, medical details because I want people to hear how serious it can be, even for someone young like me. I never stopped having a rapid heart rate, I would say, for months still, because, I got sick early June, was sick all of June, all of July, kind of started working my way back up to going out in public and being back at work in August. Had a rapid heart rate until probably December. Anytime I got up and got moving, really couldn't exercise. It was miserable. But I still have strange chest pains and I still get heart palpitations. Almost every day I'm dealing with heart palpitations. So for the first time in my life, I have a cardiologist. They're running all kinds of tests. They're trying to make sure that there's no lingering damage. When I talk to my cardiologist, she says, you wouldn't believe how many new patients I have in who have the same symptoms that you do after COVID. And I think in a lot of those cases, they're not seeing anything, she tells me, showing up on the tests. I've had an echocardiogram that came back great and my EKGs look good and all that. So we're running some more obscure tests now. But she says, even if it's not showing up right now, you guys do have these weird symptoms and we just don't know if some kind of damage will manifest itself down the road. If we will, it's so unknown because we've only been dealing with this disease for about a year. And I tell everyone I know about my experience and the fact that I'm still dealing with it. And not to mention, the medical bills of going to the ER and continually seeing a cardiologist. It is, it's, the gift that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, it's, if you can avoid it, that's why if you can avoid it at all costs, it's so simple to wear a mask and be careful and just hold out a few more months until more people are vaccinated. I would say it's definitely worth it not to have an experience like mine or Will's or Candy's.
And that's why I'm glad that you two joined me today, because hearing from you in particular, Jackie, because of how severe your case was and how prolonged it's been and what impact it's had on your life, people really should gain a lot of information and insight about that. And again, avoid trying to get sick. While I have Candy and Jackie here, we want to talk about a few issues and reporting topics. We've covered pretty much everything under the sun at this point related to this pandemic, but there is a couple of developments we want to address really quickly. So just a few minutes before we came on to our live streaming platforms on Facebook and our website and our mobile app, we did get information from Austin Independent School District. The district is saying that it is expecting to return to face-to-face instruction next school year. However, the district is saying there will be an optional virtual hybrid model, and they're also working out plans so that they'll separate teachers. Some will handle the in-person classes while others will handle those virtual students, so there won't be any of that kind of concurrent teaching where someone's on Zoom and also dealing with students in the classroom. So that's a big announcement coming from the district, and it really shouldn't be too much of a surprise given that a lot more operations are getting back to normal. Vaccinations are increasing too, guys.
Yeah.
And then additionally, we want to point out something that the president talked about just last night. So President Biden addressed the nation on the year anniversary that COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. And he highlighted two particular dates. One is May 1st, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. The other one is July 4th. But let's first listen to what directive he wants to happen on May 1st. So take a listen to what the president said last night.
I'm announcing that I will direct all states, tribes, and territories to make all adults, people 18 and over, eligible to be vaccinated no later than May 1. Let me say that again. All adult Americans will be eligible to get a vaccine no later than May 1.
And again, there you hear President Joe Biden saying, highlighting one more time, just to reiterate what he talked about, is that He wants states to make all adult Americans eligible to receive coronavirus vaccines no later than May 1st. And we mentioned another date, July 4th. The president also said that if everyone does their part right now by practicing those safety precautions and getting vaccinated, Americans may be able to celebrate the 4th of July together again. What's your reaction hearing that? I mean, we have talked about every peak and valley of this pandemic throughout this whole year. To hear where we are right now, at least those hopeful goals, what do you all think?
It's exciting. It's exciting because, it's all been speculation, but we've heard, but maybe well into 2022 until life can go back to normal, or definitely this fall before everyone can get vaccinated. And it seems like we're now seeing things speed up a little. So, I mean, that's hopeful, that's.
Yeah, and I think if this is indeed the case, then, we're talking about a game changer here. This could really open up the distribution to a new level that we haven't seen. And I think what's so important about that is that we also have to keep in mind there are other vaccines on the horizon that are, getting ready to go before the FDA, which I think could help with that distribution and that rollout and getting everyone 18 and over vaccinated.
I also think it's important to highlight the perspective. So within a span of a year, we here in the U.S. have 3 vaccine candidates that have received emergency use authorization, and millions of people have now been vaccinated. That is an incredible feat of science. And Jackie, you recently got your shot, your first COVID-19 vaccine.
It was a party. I got it a couple of weeks ago, actually. So I'm due for my second dose in just a couple of weeks. Very excited. I got the Moderna shot. I got it through Austin Public Health. I was so grateful. I am in phase 1B because of my asthma. And, while I kind of went over in my head, should I get it? Should I save it for older people? I decided that with how sick I got and knowing that there are new variants out there, we are seeing people get reinfected. I could not afford to be out of work, just my life stop for another couple of months again. Who knows if I would get it worse, So I did get the vaccine and was just so grateful. It was a really cool experience. It was amazing seeing how Austin Public Health brought in hundreds and hundreds of people that day. I waited in line for a while, but then just being inside of the Delco Center where I went and seeing their operation, sitting there getting the shot, it only takes a couple of minutes, and being surrounded by, probably 30 other people who are getting a shot at the same time. It was a great experience. I will say I did get some side effects after. I've heard that people who did have COVID-19 previously might get those side effects that a lot of people see with the second dose, with the first dose, because your body recognizes it. It's creating that immune response. I had a fever for a couple of days, just felt pretty lousy, but felt so much better than when I had COVID-19. Would much rather go through that than getting sick again. So it's exciting. It's exciting to know that I'm on my way to hopefully not having to live with that worry that I could get reinfected again.
For sure. Additionally, another date that we're all anticipating around here in Austin is spring break arriving. Candy, with the impact on travel this year, people have really not gone to a lot of places and have tried to, be as safe as possible, staying at home as much as possible, we hope. But with the impact on air travel, you just talked to Austin Bergstrom International Airport for a story that aired today. What kind of effect did they have on travel, on the amount of traffic that they've seen over the last year?
Yeah, and first I just had to say, Jackie, Will and myself are just so happy for you that you were able to get the vaccine, and obviously you did qualify under 1B, and so I know that Will and I are waiting for ours. I will say the good news that I have, and I think we're in the same boat, at least my parents got both of their vaccines, so I'm extremely happy for that. My parents are senior citizens, so I am very, very happy, and I'm hopeful that we will soon get ours. But talking about travel, yes, spring break is just a few days away. And, this time last year, a lot of folks still went on their vacation because it was already planned, and a lot of folks decided to cancel them. And after, this has been going on for a year, and a lot of us thought, I feel like with COVID-19, with the pandemic, we have all, I feel like, yearned for a date. Like, please tell me a date when this is going to end. I need to physically know something tangible that I can put my my focus on, right? And so that obviously is not going to be the case, and we're more than likely not going to have that. And that's just the COVID-19 is it's more than likely here to stick around. And the reason I bring that up is because after this year, a lot of folks thought that by this time last year, we would be out of this. And so some folks are getting ready to travel. Last night, we reached out on social media. I put a shout out with our digital team asking folks, hey, what are you doing for spring break? Because we were curious to know. In 2020, Austin Bergstrom saw a drop of more than 60% in travelers. That was huge. You're going from 2019, which was an all-time record high of 17.3 million passengers in 1 year. And that's following a decade of just growth, to 2020 dropping to an all-time low of nearly 6.4 million passengers. Understandably so. I mean, COVID-19 had a big impact on air travel and all across our industries. But now, speaking with Austin Bergstrom officials, they tell me they have hope. They've started to see sort of a gradual rise in passengers. People are, either feeling more confident with the vaccine rollout, or they're just feeling a little bit, hey, some people, sadly, Jackie, as we heard, they're kind of over it. And that's why we're here to talk to you guys today, because it's like, it's not over. It's not over yet. But speaking with Austin Bergstrom officials, they tell me that they just had their second busiest day of the year this past Sunday with a little over 14,000 travelers. And the first busy day of the year was on January 3rd, following that holiday season, right? But now, usually around this time, March kicks off the spring and summer travel season. And a lot of time, you guys know right now, we have so many folks. We work downtown. So we were so used around this time to already have folks walking up and down, exploring downtown, exploring the Drag, exploring the UT area because of South by Southwest. But as we know, South by Southwest this year is virtual. And so we're not seeing that. But the airport tells me that they are starting to experience, again, like I said, that gradual rise in travelers. So we may see some folks go out and head out this spring break.
I just want to pause for a second because one of our coworkers was coming up to my window that's into my office here, and there's been a bit of breaking news. So on our website, this is the story right here, if you can see. So the breaking news is Kansas is out of the Big 12 men's tournament due to COVID-19, and the University of Texas at Austin's team is moving to the finals. So the Kansas Jayhawks are out of the Big 12 men's basketball tournament due to a player testing positive for COVID-19, and that has meant that the Texas Longhorns can advance to the finals now. So again, if you'd like more information about that, that is on our website and our mobile app. Please download it if you've not done so, because we are breaking details all the time. And again, it just goes to show that this virus is not going anywhere right now. It is still out there, and it is still affecting operations all across the country. But Jackie, going back to spring break, staying on that topic, you focused the other day a story on service workers, people who are working with people directly at restaurants, hotels, those kinds of establishments. And they have expressed concern, particularly because the statewide mask mandate has now been lifted, and that business capacity limits can be lifted if those places so choose.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think a lot of these people who work in the service industry are worried that it's the perfect storm. You have the governor lifting mask mandates and capacity limits at the same time that spring break comes, right? Some spring breaks already started this week. When I talked to ABIA earlier in the week, they told me the same about Sunday being such a busy travel day, and they contribute some of that to just, it's the start of spring break. People are flying in and out. So talking to Visit Austin earlier this week, they said we do expect, maybe not as we had in 2019 or years past, when South by Southwest is in person, not virtual, but we do expect a bump in tourism, over the coming weeks. And it's Next week's a big week for spring break, but it's not just next week, it's the next few weeks. So we're expecting to see more of a steady influx of people coming into the city. And, you know, these service industry workers know that. When I talked to Visit Austin, you know, we talked about the real possibility that some people might be booking last minute spring break travel plans to Austin, to Texas, because they've learned that they've heard that the mandates were lifted, and so they're thinking, oh, well, bars are at 100% capacity, and, you know, restaurants are open, and I don't even have to wear a mask. And, you know, not that that's necessarily the case a lot of places in Austin, because those businesses are still requiring masks, but people are hearing that this is the situation in Texas now. It's somewhere that's open and might be a little more fun for spring break. So that definitely could contribute to more people making their way into the city over the next few weeks. And the service industry workers, particularly early in the week, held a protest outside of the state capitol. They were specifically asking Governor Abbott to go back on this lifting of the mask mandate. They say they don't want to be at 100% capacity until 70% of service industry workers, the ones who are face-to-face with people being served in restaurants, bars, hotels, you know, activities, until they have been able to be vaccinated, until they've gotten that chance. A lot of them just very worried. You know, they're just trying to do their jobs. They've been through so much in the past year. They face such financial difficulties. And of course, they want business, but they want the opportunity to be vaccinated because they very much are on the front lines of, you know, Austin. I think it's our third largest industry is tourism. You know, they are important employees in our city and are just wanting to get vaccinated so that they're safe as we're seeing an influx of people, you know, start to make their way back in.
Going back to vaccinations, this Monday, we're going to be seeing the Phase 1C eligibility open up. And the first group in that eligibility category is people who are 50 and older. We do have reporting on our website right now, though, that says that some providers will not be able to get to those particular patients because they're still taking care of 1A and 1B categories. And if you'd like to read more, again, that's on KXAN.com. But again, it is nice to see that vaccination eligibility is expanding, and we will likely see that ramp up even more in the weeks ahead, hopefully. But again, everybody, if you're just joining us, I'm talking to Candy Rodriguez and Jacqulyn Powell, and all three of us have dealt with COVID-19. We had cases ourselves and have fortunately recovered. Jackie still has some issues, some prolonged effects after her infection, and she detailed that just a few moments ago. But before we go, while I have you two here, Candy, I want to highlight one thing that you're going to be keeping your eye on, because coming up this summer, the Tokyo Olympic Games are still happening, and you are a part of our team from our company, Nexstar, that's going to go and cover that. We just learned this week that the Olympics, though, will not allow out-of-country spectators in to watch the events that will unfold this summer. How are you preparing? What's the latest on that situation?
Well, yes. As far as we know, we are still going, obviously just to cover the games. And so, yes, it is sad for the athletes. You know, speaking with them, they tell me, I would love to have the fans in the stands and maybe some of their extended family or just the family in general. So, yeah, there's a lot still that we need to discuss. There's a lot that is still yet to be released. I mean, the IOC is supposed to release another playbook soon, hopefully later this spring, so we can get a better idea of maybe how things change, right? If we're talking about this vaccine distribution and we start to see better distribution roll out across the world, not just here in the country, right? Because we're talking about the Olympics, this is for everyone. Who knows? Maybe the IOC could change that. But as far as the Olympics go for now, as of today, yes, no spectators for now. And that's what we're being told. And so hopefully we'll see, again, with the vaccine distribution, if any of that does change.
Well, Candy Rodriguez, Jacqulyn Powell, thank you both for joining me. And Jackie, it's nice to see your cat. I can see it popping up every now and again in your shot.
Her tail is just...
Oh.
Well, before we go,
this was my little quarantine buddy, I have to say. She kept me sane as I was sick.
Yeah, it is helpful for sure. What were you going to say, Candy?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you. Precious, cat, by the way, Jackie. You know, I love your cat. But no, but I mean, obviously, Jackie and I both talked about our experiences. But I mean, I think it's very important that you share yours as well. I mean, I know you were going through it, and you went through it most recently. Now that we know a lot more, and so what was it like for you? And do you have any lingering side effects?
Yeah. So initially, I had, and thank you for asking me that because I wanted to make this point. So my exposure that day, I had gone to get a COVID test. It came back negative. It took about 2 days for it to come back. And then I thought there is just no way that this wouldn't have affected me. So I got a second test and that one came back positive. It only took a day as well. So that is nice to see the improvement in the results coming back. On the day that I tested positive, got those results, I woke up with a sore throat, but that was kind of the worst physical symptom I felt. Never had a fever, never lost the sense of smell or taste. The biggest issues really were the fatigue and the mental fog, losing my train of thought very quickly, and that was difficult to work through. But fortunately, our bosses here have understood, and they've been accommodating for all of us, which has been really nice, allowing us to work from home and stay safe. So we have to commend them for that too, because they've taken this very seriously.
Yeah, and I just have to say shout out to both of y'all. And I know, Jackie, you would feel the same way. And Will, I know you feel the same way. But I would like to say shout out to both of y'all. Shout out to work. Work was very accommodating. Work was very, and it's nice when you have an employer that obviously is keeping an eye on you and wants to make sure that you're okay. So they're keeping you home. And a lot of us are still working from home to this day. So that's a big blessing, I feel like, because we have our essential workers that don't have that option. Some of them have to go out and about, and they don't have that option. And so what I wanted to say is shout out to everyone, because even though Jackie lost her sense of taste and your smell, taste for a couple of days, the smell was a lot longer.
For a while, yeah.
I just want to say shout out to everyone, because I appreciate and love all of y'all here at work, because everyone brought me food, and I know that
they did. Candy brought me food, and then she was sick shortly after, so she was an angel.
And then Jackie brought me, I don't know if you remember, Will, at this time we didn't have, at that time, first of all, no toilet paper. Right. Well, that was like around this time last year. But at that time when we got it in June, we couldn't find a thermometer or an oximeter, so it was just a bunch. So I'm glad that we have those resources again today, and we're starting to see some of that. I know that I was very excited to get some high quality sanitizer about a month and a half ago. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of y'all as the coworkers. I know that this is
I do. Our workplace. That's the nice thing about working with people who are reporting on it and see a little more. We tell these stories. Our bosses, our coworkers were all so kind and so understanding and stepped in to fill our spots while we were gone. Like I said, I was out for 2 months. They let me work from home as I could. When I couldn't, they understood. And that was a lifesaver, because I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have the time to recuperate, even after I wasn't contagious anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so glad that we had this chance to talk, and that all of us are doing better after getting infected. Yes, there's your mask right there.
Right.
I get ready to go back out.
Mine's in my pocket.
I've
Here we
got
go.
a double mask here, so yeah, it's important. Well, Candy Rodriguez, Jacqulyn Powell, thank you both for joining me. I'm glad to hear you're doing better, and Jacqulyn, of course, we're thinking about you as you continue to recover and deal with the other issues from your infection. So thank you all again.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Stay
All
safe
right,
out
everybody.
there.
Thank you all for watching as well. Our conversations about a year anniversary after the first case of COVID-19 here in Travis County continues on our website. That's KXAN.com, and on the KXAN News mobile app. Download it if you've not done so. Everybody take care, be safe, and we'll see you back here another time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.